Hello and welcome to another episode of The Pursuit of Myself. I am Rayne. I don't know why I have to say that every time. Anyway, I do. So here we go. What has been happening in my world? I went on a very, very last minute trip to Bali for one of my best friends' day, which was awesome. Literally flew out Friday night, flew in very first thing Monday morning. And I was like, holy shit, I am so proud that I have created this life and business that can actually support me. Not like the money wise, but it's also the last minute. So I was still doing a bit of work over there. I was able to switch off if I wanted. The kids were supported here. I feel like, and I know we talk about these milestones in life where we get to look back and be like, that version of me would be so proud of where we are today rather than going on to the next thing. And I actually said this to one of my clients who sold out her offer. And I was like, how are you going to celebrate? Like that version of you that started doing this, that didn't even know if she could sell 2 tickets, let alone sell out 12 people in like 4 weeks. You're like, that version of you, remember that person 6 weeks ago when we started working together? She should be so proud of what we've just done. So anchoring into that celebration, proud energy. Yes, like this is what I've really wanted to create: the money, the abundance, the flexibility, the emotional freedom. I'm attracting the most incredible clients into my world from this magnetic energy that I'm living every single day. And this is not because I give people strategy and blueprints. This is because I am who I am. This is because I commit to showing up without my mask, and I'm showing up in the identity that is needed to do what I want to do. And I'm showing up now without the evidence. And that's what I learned when I was away. There was 23 women there. And look, anyone who knows me deeply know that's not kind of my thing. Like I get really funny with so many people. I'm more of a small, connected, intentional, but I still had so much fun and got to know a couple of the women really deeply when we escaped all the craziness. So I just wanted to give you that encouragement as well from this. It's like, what can you actually look at your life today and say, that version of me 6 months would be so freaking proud of what you've created, instead of constantly moving on to the next thing. I am building, and I've started building this about a month ago, the Academy, the Myself Academy, which is for the woman in business, the entrepreneur that has done some of the groundwork of their energetics and knows the spirituality and feels like she's spinning her wheels because it's time to grow her business. And, I could sit here and tell you the business stuff. I could do this. I've started 5 businesses. I can do everything from the social media to the strategy to the startup. But the biggest thing is we need to work with the human. What is your capacity to grow that business? What is your glass ceiling in your business? Does your person, your partner, believe in your business? They'll never believe in it as much as you, but do they actually believe? Are you being honest with them about what you're building? This phase and this level of entrepreneurship actually requires the energetic piece. So the Academy is going to be built for this woman entrepreneur. It is going to show you how to build. It's going to have all my templates. It's going to have all my social media strategies. It's going to have all the things, but it is working so closely with me because I get to work with the human. This is where my authenticity piece comes in. I love to work with humans. What are you building and why? Let's do this together. Where are your personal roadblocks? Where is your fear rooted in? What do you keep defaulting to? Fighting, fawning, flight, fight, or fawn. What is your nervous system default to? What happens when you have shitloads of money? Do you just want to throw it away? Where's your capacity to hold it? Where's your capacity for debt? There's so many things that I can't wait to work through in this academy. So applications, I will start taking applications now. DM me on Instagram, or I'll put up a link below in this show notes. But it will be a 6-month program. We kick off in February. But what I am also doing is that anyone who joins now gets 3 months of free coaching inside the academy. So I already have someone in the program, and we are meeting once a fortnight, and I'm coaching her now free, while we wait for the vault to open in February. So this is an incredible way to get in early at these prices, to get in with a payment plan if that's what you need, but to start your coaching now. Why not start setting everything up now so that we have the most incredible kick-ass 25? That is the goal. That is the aim. That's what we need to do. Now is always the perfect time. Always. So you want to chat about the academy? It's application only. Let me know. Book in a call. Fill out the application, and let's see how we can start building the best year for your confidence, your abundance, your wealth, your best year ever. All right. So let's get on to this episode. This episode is for the woman who is done parading and performing and feeling like you have to manipulate everyone else's idea of who you are just so that you can feel safe. We go really deep into this. I think it's something that everyone needs to hear because we are constantly showing up in masks, constantly showing up not authentic. And I teach you how to start making the steps right now to start showing up in the identity that you need to be authentic, to be you, to be seen, to find your courage, to find your voice. And that's what we're diving into today. So let's go. Welcome to the Pursuit of Myself, the podcast. Here we take ownership of our healing. We rewrite the rules, we turn knowledge into wisdom, and we lead our lives with intention. I'm your host, Rayne, and it's my mission to empower you to get back into the driver's seat of your life. So most people don't actually realize this, but you spend 99% of your energy. I cannot remember who said this. It might come to me maybe later in this recording, but you spend 99% of your energy either trying to look good in front of others or trying not to look bad. I found that phenomenal. And do you know what that actually creates? It creates masks, performances, and identity built on other people's opinion, not your authentic truth, not your authenticity. But what we tell ourselves is that we have to do it. You convince yourself it's safer. And before you even notice, being authentic becomes, or I should say being inauthentic becomes your normal. And authenticity becomes really, really hard because you spend all this time building something, building an idea, manipulating the idea of how people see you as inauthentic. It's actually inauthentic. So to choose authenticity after so much time is hard. So if you are feeling disconnected, misunderstood, like you're trying to change and people are not accepting you or like no one really knows who you are, there is a reason. You don't feel safe being who you actually are. Ouch. This episode is about finding the courage to take that mask off, to stop manufacturing how people see you, and to finally be the woman who is real, who is grounded, who is direct, and unapologetically herself. So from a really young age, especially women, we're taught to be agreeable, to be good, to make everyone comfortable, to don't upset anyone, to don't take up too much space, to not be seen, to don't be obnoxious. But your identity actually forms around other people's comfort zones. So when you start behaving like this and you get accolades and you get, extra love and people feel comfortable around you, that's how you start behaving and that's how your identity is formed. But it's not actually your truth. It's from seeing the effect, the comfortableness of the people around you. That's where your identity starts to grow. So you start adapting, performing, shape-shifting, being the chameleon, simply to be accepted and to keep that feeling going, because you're a good girl. And Jim Thornton, he says it perfectly. Most people's personalities aren't who they are. They are coping mechanisms. Your nice girl, your easygoing self, your keep the peace version, these aren't your identities. They are your survival. And survival is not the same as how do you know the difference? How do you know if you're acting from survival or how do you know you're acting from authenticity? And this is the big question that I really want to look at today, because when you've been programmed or showing up a certain way for so long, let's liken it to, and this is actually going on in my Myself Method group at the moment. We are going to talk tonight about a few of the women are, how do I show up with my in-laws because they are a certain type of way or they don't accept me or they make fun of me, they look down on me, all these sorts of things. And yes, one of them we could be like horrible in-laws. But on the other, if you can liken it to when you first get in a relationship and obviously you want your in-laws to like you, so you put on a mask. I mean, how do you show up in a situation where you want someone to like you? You don't show up with your opinions and theories. You really show up in a way which you think that they are going to like you. So this is a really great example because we spend years wearing this mask. I'm going to be who you need me to be so that you like me. Even if you're X, Y, and Z, and I don't agree with you, I'm just going to sit here quietly and nod my head because I love your son. And I want this relationship to work. So in order for this to work, I need to have him see the fact that you like me, and this is how I'm going to show up, right? This is a common thing that we see all the time. And that is a really good example of putting on your mask to be liked, but it's also a way, and hear this, that we manipulate the way that people see us because it's not truth. Now, I'm not saying we rock up, we're meeting people and we're all about like conspiracy theories and, opinions. And we all know that I am massive in this space, but I've had a lot of practice in showing up in who I am and not in fear of what people think of me. And I've had 10 years online to really hone my skills at this. But when we haven't had those skills and we haven't had that deep understanding of who we are and how we're showing up, it's easier just to show up how we think we need to be and to manipulate other people's opinions of us so that we feel safe. But again, it is out of survival. It's not out of authenticity. So let's talk about a way that we really can spot this in ourselves. So one of the ways we spot this in ourselves is where we lie. Maybe not the big lies, but the little subtle ones. Like we polish up the truth, we soften responses, the parts of yourself that you hide that you might feel that they might not accept, that you want. Let's say you want to be a stay-at-home mum and you know that your partner's parents are like entrepreneurs, they both work really hard, and maybe it was just a different environment, something that you didn't grow up in. It's just something that you don't aspire to. And you feel that it could be quite shameful or unaccepted if you state the fact that you just want to be a stay-at-home mum. Not just, I'm definitely not diminishing. I think it's the biggest role in the world, that you want to be a stay-at-home mum. It could go the opposite in a lot of different cultures and religions. It's like they expect people to be stay-at-home, but I want to work, right? So we don't have opinions about this. We hide these parts of ourselves that could be rejected and in shame. We lie about it. So we lie to manufacture how we are being seen. We lie to keep comfortable because we are terrified of how we will be received. And you lie because you think that the honesty will cost you something. And it might cost you love, acceptance, approval, might cost you feeling safe or belonging in that family. So we lie. And this starts at a really young age. It's the same with kids, what time they get home, where they are, let's say you're late teens and they're starting to experiment with alcohol, or, whose friend's house they're in when they know that you don't like that friend. It starts, that lie is a root of fear. We lie because we're in fear of something. So what happens to children, adults, teens, everyone? We become a curated version of ourselves. We pretend that we're okay. We tell people what they want to hear. You hide your needs or the fact that you want support. You minimize your feelings because you don't want people to think that you're upset by something. And you only show parts of you that you feel are acceptable, right? But every single one of those lies is actually rooted in fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of conflict. We talk a lot about that with my clients, the fear of conflict, fear of being too much, fear of not being enough, fear that if people actually knew who you are, knew the truth, that they wouldn't choose you. But here's what happens. That fear creates your identity. Your identity drives your behavior, and your behavior becomes the mask that you live behind. It becomes the way that you show up so that you can be received a certain way. It's not who you are. It becomes the cage that you live in. It becomes fixed. And by lying, even in the smallest of ways, well, that is disconnecting you from yourself. And not only does it erode in your self-trust, but it breaks the relationship that you have with yourself. It breaks the relationship with the real you. And it keeps you from ever experiencing depth, intimacy, and the relationships that I know you're actually craving, because you can't build real connection through pretending or through lying, even if it's little white lies. You can't build a trusting, connected relationship through performance or manipulation of the way that someone sees you. You have to find the courage to tell the truth, even when it feels uncomfortable. Because that's the moment that you stop living in that fear, and the moment that you say yes to yourself and you start living in the identity that you need to show up as to receive what you want, which is the love, belonging, the connection. You're not manipulating the way other people see you. You are showing up as that person. And the cost of having masks is actually huge because, as I said at the beginning of this, 99% of the time we're wearing a mask. If we haven't done the work, quote unquote, you are literally manipulating the way that people see you, the way that you're received. And you're showing up in a way that doesn't make you look bad. So it's not in the truth, but it costs you everything. And let me tell you the cost of wearing this mask. And I'm only going to go hard at this because a lot of the women that I work with, they want connection. They want deep connection. They want community. They want self-confidence. All those things that you want, every time you put that mask on, you are taking them away. I'll say that again. Every single time you put that mask on, you are taking away from the ability to create what you want, right? So the mask, it costs you depth. The mask costs you intimacy. It costs you trust. It costs you ease. It costs you authentic relationships and your own sense of self, because you cannot call in aligned, connected relationships while showing people a version of you that does not even exist, a manufactured version. But the biggest cost that I see is that you will never get to experience what it feels like to be loved for who you actually are. And isn't that, as I just said before, what most of us are actually striving for? The self-confidence is in finding the courage to be who you are. Connection is allowing someone to see who you are. And if you want to feel loved and seen for who you actually are, you cannot show up wearing a mask every single day. And this goes for married couples as well. I work with a lot of married couples and a lot of women that are like, I just don't know if my husband knows who I am. I think I spoke about this on my first episode of my podcast. How can they know who you are? How can they see you in your authenticity if you are showing up with a mask? And this is where the work always starts with us. We are sitting here waiting to feel seen, to feel loved, to feel protected. But we're wearing a mask until we feel safe to do that. Can't happen that way. The work is always with yourself. The work is always with us. How do I show up now to give people an opportunity to receive me in a way that they can actually see who I am? How do I show up today? Because I used to be that woman that performed, kept the peace, stayed small, looked for validation, built my whole life around being seen as a superwoman. But the moment I realized that I was filtering my life through how will this look, everything changed. So I made a decision that people don't have to like me. And look, yes, the light bulb moment went off, but it took a while to integrate. When I decided that people don't have to like me, that I could find the courage to be who I am and not everyone's going to like me, my world actually changed. Because you know what? I don't like everyone. I'm going to say, I respect, admire, but I do not like everyone. That's just a fact. And I'm not here to fit into anyone's expectations of me. I'm not here to manipulate the way that you see me. And I think that's the biggest thing, even with my social media and my podcast, and the biggest feedback that I get from you guys, which touches my heart every time, is keep going. I love your vulnerability and I love how authentic you are and I love your growth. Now, not everyone has to take everyone on a social media journey, but that's my work. This is my business. And I know that by me showing up is inspiring other people to do the same. And this is what we need more of in the world. So this is what I am. I'm not here to fit into your expectation of who I am in my personal life, who I am online, who I am as a mother, who I am as a business owner. I just simply commit to showing up as me, finding the courage every day to show up as me. And when I dropped that mask of having to please everyone because it felt sort of safe and good, putting my mask on, everything shifted, like everything. My relationships got deeper. My friendships became stronger. Yes, a lot of people dropped off because I refused to be who they needed and expected me to be. I was me, and that's okay. That's probably a whole nother podcast episode. But my business became cleaner. I started attracting people that wanted to grow and wanted to get rid of the mask and wanted to learn and evolve because people trusted me. Because they could feel me. They could feel my energy. They know what they get with me. What you see is what you get. And it's the reason that my relationships now feel safe. They feel real. and they feel really grounded because I'm committed to showing up as who I am. I'm committed to myself. I don't abandon myself to manipulate a way that people see me. And that's how you cultivate real relationships. But again, you have to be willing sometimes to say goodbye to the version of you that needed to show up a certain way to be in that 30-year friendship, to hold on, to white knuckle it through. Sometimes you have to feel safe to let things go, because by abandoning yourself, it's not abandoning yourself for real connection. It's in fear that who will I be without my mask? Will I still have any friends? Will I ever find that loving connection if I take off my mask? So this is where we talk about courage and bravery. We have to find our courage to be who and what we are, even when it feels uncomfortable. And this is in situations of in-laws, like I was talking about before, and we're going to go in my group. We talk about this tonight in my myself group, in my masterclass. And it's finding ways to not abandon yourself in situations that have always felt really uncomfortable. Like, how do you show up more and more of yourself every single day outside of your mask? How do you ask for what you want, ask for what you need, but also show up in a way that says, hey, I'm not abandoning. I'm here. I'm committed to myself first and foremost. I've had actually had a comment from someone the other day, and he said, my dad used to say, don't tell people that you grew up in the Western suburbs. And it was really, really interesting, because it's like, don't be authentic and don't be true, because people will judge you. So just be who you need to be to have them like you and not judge you. I mean, that is one thing and it's probably a really old school way of thinking. And I'm sure, and many of you listening to this podcast might go, oh, I've heard my parents say stuff like that. It wasn't my parents, by the way. But imagine growing up in a world where it wasn't safe, and you were taught that it wasn't safe to be who and what you are, that you were taught that you needed to be something like different to be loved and accepted in your group, to taught that if you tell people and they know that about you, then they're not going to like you or they're going to judge you. So you spend your whole life like trying to avoid the shame of feeling where you grew up. That was part of who you are, avoiding the shame by lying. It's really, really interesting, because when we are constantly manipulating the way that people see us, we forget, or we don't even know who we are. Like, who would we be if we were totally honest about our lives? Who would we be if we were taking full responsibility for our lives, our feelings, our stuff? I think another conversation I had with a client the other day was around can't be responsible for other people's feelings. So let's go back to that example that I said. Let's say, one of them wants to be a stay-at-home mum, and that's just not accepted in the other family. Like, the expectation is that you work. Don't put that pressure on my son. All this, make up the stories however this suits you. But the uncomfortable feeling is, how do I still show up and be honest and not feel shame or guilt around that? Because this is who I am. And we don't own it by maybe shouting it from the rooftop, being obnoxious. But maybe we just own it in those moments where we have the invitation to be honest. Taking radical responsibility for the way that we love ourselves and the way that we show up and in our authenticity is our job. The brain wants you to find evidence that you'll be safe first, but safety actually comes from you taking action and finding your courage in those moments. Because when we sit back and wait for evidence that may or may not ever come, well, it won't, because you're just future projecting, trying to find a reason, something. And this is why so many people go to burnout or breakdown before they make change, because you're waiting for the evidence before you actually do it. But what we actually have to do is build the courage and bravery by taking one step in the direction of authenticity, okay, this is uncomfortable, but I'm going to speak anyway. I feel like I need to lie, but I'm going to be honest about this anyway. That is where courage is built, in the moments, not by waiting. And this is what we work on. I work deeply with my clients on this, especially my one-on-ones. We voice note a lot when these things are going through, these themes are working through their lives. Because when you feel like no one actually knows you and who you are, and you've had to be something else for so long, it is really hard to make those shifts. So we also do this inside the myself method, where we rebuild identities from truth, from boundaries, from being seen. And the women in there, they get to show up like that. And that's what I said in there, we've got a Marco Polo thing, and people are showing up and having their experience. And we're talking about in-laws at the moment. And they get to show up in this group and with me being like, this is what I'm going through. How do I find the courage? This is what I really think. This is what I really feel. So they're not finding the identity. They're finding the courage to show up in this group as who they are authentically. And then the next step is to take that practice, that vulnerability, and repurpose it into your life, into your everyday life. That's what I love about community. This is what I love about groups, is you get to practice being seen in the identity that you are becoming in real time. And what I see the outcomes of all this stuff so often is that connections come, marriages shift, friendships recalibrate. We stop overthinking and when we start loving and accepting ourselves, sometimes for the first time, you feel so free because you don't always need to be liked. You don't always need to be accepted. And true emotional freedom comes when you love and accept yourself. That is true emotional freedom. Emotional freedom is the absence of second guessing every single move that you make. Emotional freedom is being able to choose who you are, even though the fear is there, even though it feels uncomfortable. You get to choose it, and then we get to know who we are in our choice. And that's when the emotional freedom comes. We are a slave to our emotions when we are trying to keep up with appearances, because it's fucking exhausting wearing a mask all the time and having to be a certain way that's inauthentic to be liked and loved. It gets exhausting. And this is why so many women that I work with are between their 40s and 50s, because something happens. Like your soul starts to wake up. Your soul starts to go, what am I doing? I'm exhausted. I can't play this game anymore. Who am I? And then they go, what if I change? How does this look? What if I take my mask off? What are the family going to think? What are my kids going to think? What's my husband going to think? How do I start showing up? And so generally that's where they come for support. Finally, you get to be supported. And interestingly, what anchors all this in is when I think about it, and we talk a lot on identity and a lot on who do I need to be? What do I need to do to have what I want? Again, not the evidence-based model, but the courage-based model. Because you don't actually rise to your goals. You rise to the identity that you are loyal to. You rise to the identity that you're loyal to, that you've learned to have, the identity is, I don't live in the Western suburbs. The identity is, I want to start a business, but I don't know. The identity is, I don't want to go to uni, but my parents want me to. The identity, you rise to your identity. And if your identity constantly needs approval, then your behaviors will always be pleasing, adapting, shrinking, performing. But if your identity becomes, I'm who I am, and that is enough, your identity world reorganizes around that truth. So identity first, and then everything else follows. This is the courage model, not the evidence-based model. We must identify who we are, know who we are, identity first, do your inner work, and then everything else follows. So I guess what I want to leave you on, because I always try and give you some ways that you can work through this on your own, is how to build courage within yourself, how to build courage to be yourself. Okay. A couple of things you can look at doing now, like right now, is one, tell the truth in small ways. Start with everyday truths that you avoid, whether it's, oh my God, I scrolled till midnight and I told everyone that I went to bed at 11. Whether it's, I'm getting up at 6:30, but I'm telling everyone that I'm getting up at 5:30. Like, where are you lying in your everyday? Just start building the courage to tell the truth in really small ways. That's one first way. 2, stop managing people's perceptions of you. It's not your job to control how people see you. If you are finding it really uncomfortable, know that you are tell yourself, why am I manipulating the way that this person sees me? What gives me permission to do that? Ask yourself, stop doing it. Another thing, 3, be direct. Be really direct. People trust clarity. People know what they get with me because I am direct. Directness, to a lot of people equate that to being rude, but you can be direct from love. People want to know what they're going to get from you. They don't want to be pussyfooted around. I certainly don't want to be. I don't want to be pleased. Like, I want directness. I want clarity, and I trust a person that gives me clarity. I trust it when I know who someone is, right? Directness is not aggression. It is safety and connection in relationship. So we get a bit harder in these ones, but 4, let people actually know you. You can't deepen relationships without vulnerability. So find the people in your life that you want them to actually know who you are and commit to being vulnerable with them. It's big. And number 5, choose one identity shift today. Just choose it. Ask yourself, who do I need to be right now to honor the real me? Who was that? What could you do right now to honor the real you? Because the fact of the matter is, you will never feel safe and free inside a life built on pretending. You don't need to be liked. You don't need to be palatable to everyone. You don't need approval. You need the courage to be who you are, the courage to be who and what you are. Because when you stop performing, your entire life expands. I can guarantee you this is where life expands, when you find this courage. And this is exactly what we do. This is exactly what we shift inside the Myself method. We rebuild identities from the inside out so that you can stop performing, stop hiding, and finally live as the woman you actually are, and the woman who actually starts that business, the woman who actually falls in love, the woman who asks their partner for intimacy in their marriage, the woman who actually stands up whilst she's around her in-laws. We must rebuild our identity from the inside out, right? Because that is what you deserve. This is what we do inside the Myself method. So if you are ready to stop shrinking, having the best 2026 you can think of, to start that business, to grow that income, to become more abundant, this is the truth of who you are. And if this is what you want to step into, book a call with me. The link is down there in the show notes. But I encourage all of you to jump in. Let's see what we can do and how we can make 2026 the best year yet. I will see you all next week. Ciao.